Hello, everyone. I'm Kevin Kunzman, Managing Editor of Contagion, here for our next contribution into growing discussion around the great coronavirus vaccine development plan, obviously Operation Warp Speed, living up to its name. In just a few months, we've already hit essentially the proverbial last turn of the track already for vaccine development, as a lot of the leading candidates are already into phase 3 trials, and we're beginning to discuss some greater topics of vaccine use in terms of prioritization, eventual distribution, who's getting what nations are preferring which options, the differing items that are available, how they're going to be administered, whether it's a singular or booster dose. And one of those topics that's very interesting and something that we haven't really been able to tackle on our platform just yet is actually storage and overall placement and use of these millions and millions of doses we're about to have. And joining me today to discuss that is Lauren Clancy. Lauren is the Senior Director of Temperature and Environmental Monitoring Solutions at Centrac. And before we get into this whole topic, Lauren, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Kevin.
Great. And thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. So, Lauren, we were just saying before we got on here, obviously, some of these leading vaccine candidates that we are likely going to see on the market in the coming months, if not early 2021 or mid 2021, carry a lot of differentiation, at least in how they are required to be stored. A very vital step, I'm sure, to the distribution process, right? Can we talk a little bit about that? What are the differentiations?
Yeah, so Kevin, it's going to be quite complicated in that there are, I think, probably four vaccine manufacturers that are really in front right now. Moderna, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and J&J have pretty much started their or well into their phase 3 trials. 30,000 plus people involved with each trial, and some are going to require extreme cold, ultra low temperatures, as a matter of fact, which is really about a -80. These are active biologics that have to be kept at this temperature to provide the necessary inoculation strength that the vaccine has to deliver. And when you talk about a -80, it really has to be kept at that temperature in a transport perspective. Packaging is not so much a problem, but the fact that you're dealing with dry ice is a whole other issue, because when you have a high concentration of dry ice, it is liquid nitrogen, and that impacts the environment, reduces the amount of oxygen in a room. And so there's going to have to be areas where people have to be aware of how much dry ice and how much cold is coming out of that container as it's being moved into an ultra low unit. And ultra low units are quite expensive. They take up a lot of space, a lot of energy, and that is going to be key. That's really the Pfizer vaccine. Others have different requirements.
It's just really fascinating, and just looking at the particularities, I feel like we're at a disadvantage here just because, whereas clinically speaking, we're at an advantage of having so many different options and, hopefully the benefit of something resembling choice or understanding of different efficacy and safety benefits across the board here. This is something where a lot of these vaccines are already spoken for in terms of distribution agreements, right? And we're talking about hundreds of millions of doses at a time. And as you were saying too, a lot of booster doses, almost entirely the leading candidates that are in phase 3 that we're looking to see become distributed very soon are booster doses. So the differing particularities, I imagine, are going to pose as a very difficult thing to overcome for a lot of the facilities, right? And when we're talking about the facilities, is this largely hospitals that we're planning to distribute from?
Well, it's a good question. I think the federal government, I believe, is partnered up with McKesson as the primary distributor of the vaccine. So to your point about the booster version versus the J&J version, which may not require a booster, I think it's still a little bit undecided as to whether that's going to be needed or not. What do you request? How is it handled? Who gets what? And when are all key components. I think the word is that the first The first available dosages are going to go to frontline workers, right? Caregivers, first responders, and I think those over 65 with any kind of a compromised immune system are going to get it first, and then it's going to eventually roll out to the rest of the public. But all of them are going to have to be handled. Certainly, hospitals will have them. Doctors' offices will handle them. There is a program in the market today called the VFC, which is the Vaccines for Children's program, and that's administered really by the CDC and tightly regulated. So I would imagine it's going to follow a similar path, and most hospitals participate in VFC, and I would imagine that they would also be involved with the COVID program too.
Right. Right. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, at least it's great to see that there is a consolidation there, right, at that level. Whereas the prioritization topic, of course, was one that was highly focused upon a few months ago. I feel like this was something that was a little bit more under the radar, right? But if we're looking at, a growing discussion of concerns around safety risks and, speaking particularly to the vaccines themselves, obviously there's a lot of laymen that are becoming introduced to the science of vaccine development just now in real time and are trying to understand that despite the expedited process, there is still a lot of regulation in the safety. All this is to ask you, Lauren, essentially, is there any particular risk we need to consider in improper storage or distribution of the vaccines that needs to be addressed up forefront, or perhaps we already have systems in place to mitigate?
Well, I think Kevin, that the patient safety aspect is really related to if the vaccine is compromised in terms of temperature, it's not going to deliver the anticipated outcome, and that would basically mean that the patient would have to come back and have to get it again. I don't know whether there's actually been tests to say, okay, we're going to warm it up and deliver it and see what the impact is on a patient. But if it's traditional in the form of most vaccines, it's just basically the potency of the vaccine is minimized, so it becomes ineffective.